doing some covert filming. This is the rifle range where day one of introduction basically to the AR-15. It's very cold today, really cold, because there's a wind blowing across the range. So it's pretty uncomfortable. We're about halfway through the day, just had lunch. Wide variety of firearms, mostly AR-15 platforms, a couple of SIGs. One guy here with SLR, FN 762, and a couple of guys with bolt actions. Most people have got optics, a couple of us have got irons. Interestingly enough, my higher rifle with iron sights, I'm getting much better grips than the guys with optics, which is pretty normal. They're dwelling in the aim too much and getting a bit of a shake on and starting to snatch their shots. But already I've learned a new stance and some unlearning some bad habits I picked up from the army. So there's a guy standing behind me looking at me now. I'll stop filming. Evening. I've just walked in from day one of the second firearms course that I'm undertaking at a place called Frontsite in Nevada. It's one of the larger schools, shooting academies here in the United States, and it's very good. I did a report on the handgun school. I was going to tell you a bit about the rifle stuff and cover off some of the questions that people have asked me in the comment section. First off, is Dr. Ignatius Piazza, whatever his name is, the guy that set up Frontsite, is he a Scientologist or is he associated with the Church of Scientology? I have no idea. There's a rumour floating around that once upon a time he went to a seminar, and I think he's kind of probably a victim of his own success. The tall poppy syndrome is alive and well in the United States as it is everywhere else in the world. He has achieved something quite remarkable by setting up this facility, and I think maybe he's a victim of the knocking machine. As to whether there's any direct link, I have no idea. I've seen precisely no evidence of that. Nothing from the staff, nothing in the facility around the place, zero. So I suspect it's just one of those vicious rumours that percolates around from time to time. Certainly if anybody tried to come up and suggest that I might like to be audited, I'd be out the door very quickly, as would 99% of the other people that attend the school. In fact, if somebody asked me if I wanted to be audited, there would probably be a nasty accidental shooting. So I think we can put that one to bed. He is an unusual guy, and as is often the case with these guys that set up new things, they're zealots. They vibrate with intensity, they have the pointy eyeballs, and there's a little bit about that, about him. But normal people don't go out and just do this kind of groundbreaking stuff, so maybe cut the guy some slack. Even if you don't like him, and again, there was a video of him here standing in a very military posture. The interviewer asked him if he had a military background because of his dress and bearing, and he said no, he didn't. And I thought immediately, oh Jesus, here's another bloody cut lunch commando, weekend warrior, never been in the military but likes to have all the accoutrements and act like he's a soldier. I don't think that's the case either. I think it's just he's set very high standards with dress and deportment, the way the staff interact, the way the facility is run. You could say that it's run along military lines in that it works very effectively and very efficiently. So again, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt as far as that is concerned. And at the end of the day, who gives a rat's ass? He has overcome what must have been 1,000 obstacles to get this facility up and running. He makes very substantial financial donations to other shooting institutions around the United States of America, because I'm completely convinced that he's absolutely passionate about the whole idea of the defence of the Second Amendment. So, yeah, as far as the principle is concerned, who cares? The facility and the staff are excellent. We did rifle today. Now, in retrospect, looking back on both the handgun, the 2-day handgun, and day one of a 2-day rifle, I probably made a bit of a cock-up. I should have signed up for the 4-day course. People that I spoke to who've done both, the 2 and the 4-day, say that the 4-day is the better option. What you have to understand is that day 1 and day 2 of both the handgun and the rifle, you're going right back to basics, and that can be a wee bit frustrating. But there's just no way around it. They have a certain way, certain techniques that they need to teach. If you've come with other experiences and other training regimes, you have to unlearn that. You have to give their way the benefit of the doubt. If it works, you adopt what you take what you want from it, and the stuff that you don't like, that doesn't work for you, you leave at the gate. So you're kind of building your own little toolkit. It's also absolutely necessary for both safety and control that everybody is operating off the same sheet of music. If you have a complete novice shooter alongside an experienced shooter doing his own thing, it's impossible for the staff to be able to look and gauge as to whether a safety issue is emerging, and it causes confusion. It is also necessary because the whole concept is building blocks. You start with the basics, which is the 2 days. You go on to the 4-day course. Day 3 and day 4 is where you get to do the good warry stuff. But if you hadn't had those basics hammered into you day 1, day 2, it would be chaotic. So it is a progressive system. Once you've completed, say, a 4-day module, you can then go on and do some more advanced stuff. Skills enhancement courses or the advanced courses in either handgun, rifle, shotgun, submachine gun, precision rifle, whatever. So it is training regime, building blocks, hammer them in, and then you start building layers of complexity on top of that. That's just the way it has to be. Some people have said, look, other shooting academies, there is more time on the range and you get to put more bullets down range. Well, that's all very well and good, but if you're coming to acquire new skills, it's the equivalent of going to the golf range and just standing there all day smashing the ball and hitting the ball 1,000 times, or going and getting some training with a professional who's going to be talking, critiquing, teaching you new things. You're not going to get to hit so many balls down range. I think that concept is very much true of the shooting sort of philosophy that they operate here. Understand this is a business. Front Sight is a brand. They're in competition with a number of other schools. And competition for the shooting dollar is pretty ferocious. But like I say, they've turned out a very, very admirable quality product. And I'm perfectly happy with the skill sets that they're imparting as well. I've learned a lot with the rifle. It has completely stood on its head the training regime that I had 30 years ago in the New Zealand Army. Again, it's kind of different. These are civilian shooters who are being trained in the equivalent of close quarters battle, short distance gunfighting. They're not going out into the field and attacking hills and holding objectives and conducting ambushes, that kind of thing. This is reasonably straightforward, one-on-one or one-on-multiple adversaries at reasonably close range, short duration, survive the experience, get it over and done with. And as I say, my shooting technique has changed. I'm now more squared onto the target rather than what I used to do, which was go side on and lean in. I'm now offset at about 30 degrees. My grip of the firearm has changed from being the conventional elbow up, hand well forward on the handguard. My hand now is right back against the magazine housing. The stock, the toe of the stock is much, much higher than the shoulder, and you're leaning forward at the waist on the balls of your feet to absorb the recoil. What that means is that you've got a much more stable firing platform. You've got straight lines with load bearing. It's muscle, it's bone rather than muscle, so you don't get the vibration. Your hands are close together, and you're in a kind of a triangle, which is geometrically the most stable shape. The toe of the butt of the AR-15 sits reasonably high, which means that your head, if you're using the iron sights or an optic, is where it needs to be. You're not having to drop your head down to get a cheek weld or to get the correct sight alignment. So all those things together, together with the absolute focus on the front sight and pinning the trigger after each shot, you put all those things in together. It takes a while to get the hang of it, but you'll notice your shooting skills increase very dramatically. And from that platform, that basic platform, you can then go on to do the more wary stuff, multiple targets, and move and shoot, or perhaps even run and gun, God forbid. So there is method in the madness. I do recommend this school. If it is a little bit more expensive than some others, there might be a reason for that. The facility itself is not associated with Scientology. I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. And the school is generating revenue which is then put out into the wider shooting community in support of and defence of the Second Amendment. So yes, I would recommend the school to anybody, with the caveat that do the 4 days rather than the 2, because you'll get a lot more out of it, and day 3 and 4 you'll get a lot more fun. The only other thing I would say is that 90% of the people on the mound were using AR-15 platforms, and they ranged everything from somebody like me with a higher gun through to some seriously tricked out bits of equipment. What was interesting was the rate of failure of a lot of the tricked out stuff. People had gone and Gucci'd up with trigger mechanisms and barrels and magazines and all manner of wonderful aftermarket bits and pieces, but they hadn't tested their rifles, and we had a high rate of failure. PMags that wouldn't fit or fell out, trigger mechanisms that broke down, parts that didn't do what they were supposed to do. So if you're going to Gucci up if you're going to pimp your AR-15, test it before you take it to a shooting school. You'll save yourself a lot of time. Anyway, I'll get back to you tomorrow after day 2 with a final concluding comments, and then we'll get across to Oklahoma. And there I'm going to insist that I'm allowed to film it. It's just me and an instructor. He can film me doing my thing, so I've got you some video footage. I think it's about it. Going to dinner now. Oh, and the other thing, it's fucking freezing, which is why I look like a mummy.